Next up, Senator Rick Santorum. Senator, nice to see you. Senator, you call yourself the defender of the taxpayers. Taxpayers benefit from innovation, robust innovation, certainly, with a growing economy. Laptop computers, flat panel displays, new generation batteries were all invented here in the United States, but now largely are made overseas. So what role should the federal government play in developing, promoting, and retaining American know-how?
Well, that's actually what my whole tax plan is all about. We actually understand that we're still innovating here in America, except we're not producing what's being innovated here. And it's one of the reasons that you see these Wall Street protesters, and they're concerned that, sort of the middle of America is being hollowed out, that the wealth that's being created by the innovators is not trickling down, if you will, to those who would make those products. And so I've actually focused my tax plan on manufacturing. And I've been traveling across the country talking about just what Marianne Dringa was talking about, which is we have an industry that has a great multiplier effect in the economy, and it's manufacturing. And if there's one thing I hear when I go out across the country, it says we need made in America again. We need to make more things in America again. And it's not just that pride of making things, but it is the opportunity for those at the bottom end of the income scale to be able to get the jobs. And I think the average manufacturing job earns about $20,000 more than non-manufacturing jobs. That means folks at the bottom end in the middle can move up that income scale. And if we create a competitive environment, I've heard some candidates talk about, well, we need a trade war with China. No, we don't. We need to just beat them. We need to have an environment here that can attract those jobs back from China and the new innovative products to be made here. So I've put together a plan that I know some people, Rick Perry just talked about a 20% corporate tax. When it comes to manufacturers and processors, we would zero out the corporate tax. We'd say there would be no corporate tax for people who make things here in America. That would be job number one. Governor, you just asked about repatriation of profits. If you repatriate profits, and there's estimated of $1.5 trillion potentially sitting in overseas accounts and repatriated and profits over there, you bring those back and you invest them in plant and equipment in America, you pay zero. You pay nothing.
Now, so you put the requirement that repatriated money would have to be invested.
I have two levels. Number one, if you bring it back for any reason, I agree with the 5.25% tax, which is what we used back in, I think, 2004, and I was one of the authors of that bill to move that forward. But if you invest it in plant and equipment, you can show that money, if you show that investment going into creating jobs here in America instead of dividends, which is not a bad thing. I'm not complaining about it. But if you're going to put that to work to create American jobs, you're not going to pay any taxes on it because the benefit to the economy and the tax revenues that will flow from that deployment will be, as Mary mentioned, have a multiplying effect. Three, there's one thing the president can do right away, and that is you can't go in and say, I'm going to change the tax code or I'm going to change this law or change that law. But you can, as the governor knows, you can repeal regulations. You can change regulations. That's all within the purview of the President of the United States. And so what I've said is that every regulation that the Obama administration has put in place that costs businesses more than $100 million, I'll repeal. We'll repeal every one of them. Some we'll have to replace. And as the governor knows, it takes a little longer when you repeal and replace. But there are a lot of those regulations there right now that are punitive that the administration has put in place that we can get rid of completely. And if you make capital available, you make it profitable because you eliminate the tax burden, and you create a regulatory environment where businesses can, where manufacturers can compete, will offset that 20% disadvantage that manufacturers have, excluding labor costs, the 20% disadvantage that our manufacturers have here in this country vis-a-vis our big trade competitors. And we'll create jobs here.
In the last week, a number of manufacturers like Honeywell and United Technologies have said they're increasing their restructuring budgets for this quarter and into the next year, not because of the regulatory environment, because of uncertain economic conditions. So again, the question is, which we posed to Governor Perry, is how does that address end consumer demand, which most economists point to, that's why the job market has been weak?
Well, first off, if you create more efficiencies and more profitability for companies and they can hire more people, then you're going to have more economic activity, more people are going to go to work, and that's going to create more consumer demand. The rest of our tax plan actually lowers all the rates, simplifies the code, and puts more money in people's pockets too. So, and the other thing is, look, I think Newt, in joking, said this the other night in Des Moines. The minute a Republican president and a Republican Congress are elected, the attitude in this country is going to change in the business community. you're going to see the attitude of consumers change. You're going to see an upward arc of markets and this economy, because the crushing burden of a government knows best, Washington-run system that Barack Obama and the Democrats have put in place is going to be over. The president going around the country beating up on businesses, beating up on people who are successful investing has an impact. If you look at Franklin Roosevelt during the Great Depression, he did the same thing, and it had a real dampening effect on the economy of this country. That attitude will change under a Santorum administration.
Senator, Iowa is a very much an agricultural state, and then we have great manufacturing like Vermeer, where we are today, which is also related to agriculture,
Yep.
mining, and many things like that. One of the things that we're concerned about, we're still heavily dependent on foreign oil, and we've made some progress over the recent years with the Renewable Energy Standard that is gradually reducing our dependency on foreign oil and using renewable that we produce in agriculture. And also, of course, we've had this wind energy tax credit, which has expired 3 times. Senator Grassley is a real champion of that, would like to see that extended for 4 more years. How do you feel about the wind energy tax credit and the whole renewable energy standard, which is helping us reduce our dependency on foreign oil?
I'll meet you halfway, Governor. I believe we have to get rid of all tax incentives for all energy. I think we have to have a level playing field, and we need to phase out those programs. I don't think we should create a heart attack for any industry, but we should phase them out over a period of time. I've suggested 5 years for ethanol and some of these other credits. Let's phase them out. Let's get to it. And I'm talking about not just ethanol, but I'm talking about gas, oil. There aren't any tax credits for coal. They just beat the heck out of coal. So we need to create that level playing field, number one. With respect to the Renewable Energy Standard, this is a Clean Air Act issue. I support maintaining that. I'm not going to die on that hill. I'll leave the renewable standard in place, in part because you're right. I mean, we do create energy in this country. Ethanol industry has come a long, long way. Look, I'm someone who voted against all the tax credits for ethanol. I voted against all the tax credits for ethanol, and I don't know why that's beeping, but did I say something wrong voting against a tax credit for ethanol?
It's a green light.
I'm here in Iowa. I forgot about that. All right, I won't repeat that. I promise. I won't say it again. But I did support the renewable standards, and because I understand the clean air impact on that. So that's why I'll meet you halfway. But we have to have an energy program that Governor Perry mentioned Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania. It's the second largest natural gas field in the world. When I was in the United States Senate 6 years ago, natural gas prices were $12. They're $3.60. So when the president says, well, we can't drill our way to lower prices, yes, we can. We just did. And we can do so in oil with respect to ANWR and offshore. We need to create more jobs in this country through energy, and we have lower energy prices. We have more coal, and we have and more electrification. Manufacturing, well, that's one of the other planks of my manufacturing plan. Stable energy prices, stable natural gas prices, which are obviously disproportionately used by manufacturers.
Now, one part of energy, of course, is a tax that goes purportedly to support infrastructure and infrastructure building, which is used significantly by manufacturers to get products like these to market, not only domestic markets, but international markets. What role does the federal government play in collecting those revenues and dispersing them to improve infrastructure?
Well, I'm someone who believes that there is a federal role in infrastructure. I know a lot of folks think that should be left purely to the states. The problem with that is I come from the state of Pennsylvania. I think it's something like 80% of the truck traffic in Pennsylvania never stops in Pennsylvania. And so if you just said, well, Pennsylvania's job is to keep their infrastructure, well, we benefit a lot of states that just come rolling through our state, and for us to have that burden is really not fair. And so there is a role for interstate commerce and keeping the free flow of commerce going to help states that share a disproportionate burden of truck traffic. And of course, we all know it's the truck traffic that beats up your roads. It's not the car traffic. So I do believe there still is a federal role in the area of interstate transportation. Where we've gotten a little off track is a lot of federal projects are not interstate in nature, are not supporting that type of dynamic, and we need to focus those resources in that interstate transportation, and I think the federal role should continue.
Should the gas tax be indexed?
At this point, I would say no, but I do believe that, again, that we should keep the federal role involved.
Dodd-Frank is the federal response to what happened, of course, with the banks. And we have a lot of small community banks out here. They were not part of the problem. They didn't make risky loans, yet they are being hampered and overregulated. and additional tax and burdens have been placed on them because of Dodd-Frank. We think that is one thing that's really holding back a lot of small business because they can't get the financing. What would you do about that?
Well, I'd repeal Dodd-Frank. I was against it when it was being proposed. I'm against too big to fail. I think the idea of bailing out Wall Street a second time, creating that moral hazard. I always remind people that the top three, quote, top three candidates for president on the Republican side all supported the Wall Street bailout. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for us as a party to be going out in this election cycle with someone who supported a huge government intervention into the marketplace. And Dodd-Frank is simply a redo of that, which is an opportunity for the government to, again, pick winners and losers, decide who's too big to fail, who's too crucial. That's a bad approach. And of course, what happened with Dodd-Frank was they put new regulations in place for the bigger banks and then left it discretionary to the regulators as to whether they'd apply it to smaller banks. I mean, anybody see this one coming? Oh, I'm going to apply one standard to one bank and another standard to another. It's just not what's going to happen, and it didn't happen. And you're right, it's crushing small banks and as a result, small businesses.
One of the unique opportunities we have in Pella is to hear from our audience, and we have a question on jobs from Mr. Tony Raimondo.
I'm Tony Raimondo of Balin Manufacturing.
Thank you,
I think
Tony.
I speak for everyone in this room. We all know job creation is really critical to stronger economic growth. What specific actions would you take in your first 100 days to promote job creation in the U.S.?
Well, I mentioned before the tax plan that I would put in place, and the regulatory reform that I would put in place, and the things we would do to create energy jobs. So I just want to reiterate those things. I think one of the biggest things we can do is to repeal Obamacare. I think that is a job crusher that is creating all sorts of uncertainty. Whether, as Governor Branstad knows, I've been to 90 counties in Iowa so far, and I'll be at all 99 by tomorrow night. And as I travel around Iowa, I hear this from business people, small towns, big towns, uncertainty of what the federal government is doing, all of these plans that are put in place, what cost it's going to be, what the regulatory burden is going to be. And we can repeal Obamacare, and it's not by a waiver. Waiver is a bad idea. I know Governor Romney suggested that, but it's a bad idea. Why? Because if you allow some states to waive, and Governor Branstad, I suspect, will try to we'll get out of Obamacare, but California and New York won't. But the people of Iowa will pay for California and New York. That's a bad idea. What we need to do is repeal the whole thing. And you can repeal the important parts of it through something called reconciliation. Having a little experience in Washington and knowing how to get things done actually can pay off for the benefit of the people of this country. We can repeal all the taxes, all the spending, gut the entire program, and get it done in 4 months. That would be, in my mind, job number one in starting to turn this economy around. There's a whole host of other things we can do from, as I mentioned, from the regulatory perspective. My tax bill lowers rates and simplifies the code. I don't know if we could do a postcard, probably do it one page, leaves 5 basic exemptions in place for children, for charities, housing, pensions, and health care. But everything else is scrubbed out of the code. We simplify it. That will create, again, an energy and a vibrancy in the marketplace that will help turn the economy around.
Senator,
and it can pass.
Just a couple minutes left here. You mentioned your hope to repeal health care reform.
Yeah.
Prior to the passage of health care, many small businesses would cite one of the barriers of hiring was increased year-over-year, double-digit cost increases for providing health care. You repeal the reform that's on the books now. What do you replace it with?
Yeah, this is one I've had, again, a lot of experience in. Way back in 1992, I joined a guy by the name of John Kasich, who happens to be the governor of Ohio right now. And we introduced the first bill called medical savings accounts. It is now called health savings accounts. But the whole concept back then, and I've been an advocate of this for 20 years, is consumer-driven healthcare. The bottom line is that we have a healthcare system right now where the consumer is disconnected from the price of the good. And when you do that, you're going to have waste, you're going to have inefficiency, you're going to have fraud, you're going to have all sorts of problems. And that's why we spend more on healthcare than any other nation in the country. Unless we get the consumer back involved, unless we have high deductible plans where consumers are out there participating actively in the marketplace with respect to pricing and quality and all of those things, then we're going to have the opposite occur, which is government top-down. That's what Romneycare, Obamacare is all about, is government top-down, regulating the marketplace. And if consumers don't, someone else is going to have to, and ultimately it will be the government. And so that's the choice we'll have to make. I'm excited about going out, and as I have across Iowa, and talking about the consumer-driven healthcare model, and is really founded in the American experience. I mean, it's founded in believing in free people, believing in free markets, understanding that government controlling people's lives does not lead to a better quality of life, doesn't lead to even equality. What improves the overall quality of people's lives is trusting markets and consumers.
Senator, we appreciate your
Thank you
time.
very
Thank
much.
you for
Thank
joining
you all.
us.
Appreciate it.
Senator Rick Santorum.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.